Peace. It's your boy Gemini Brown here, back with another episode of Nalo Kicking Knowledge. Today, we'll be taking a look at the natal chart of Sean P Diddy Combs, and this is in light of the recent news that his ex-Cassie is filing a lawsuit against him for some very treacherous things, rape, and just downright torturous things. So let's get into it. Now, the first thing that I want you guys to keep in mind here is that there's so many different ways to look at what a birth chart is. I'll go with two ways that I really like to look at them. One is as the structure of your consciousness. Remember, this is an individual person, and these planets are going to dictate the way in which they interact with life. The aspects are very revealing, particularly when we look at the archetypal relationship of the planets. The signs and houses really give them flavor, but the aspects will tell the conversation for sure. And then keep in mind with the signs and the houses is that they're centering, as I said, like give it the flavor. They're centering the experience. The house is centering the area of life, and the sign is honing in on the expression and also adding to the experience, right? So you just got to know all the different layers of the sign and what it encompasses. Then, secondly, we're looking at the natal chart as the potentiality within the lifetime. And that's when we really, take a detailed view of like, oh, what could be. And that also has its archetypal imprint as well. P. Diddy Combs here, Scorpio sun, Virgo moon. How I'm going to interpret this is through the solar chart. And the solar chart puts the sun sign at the ascendant, and we interpret that as a way of seeing how the sun sign gains its individual expression. One of the first things you want to do here is look at where Leo falls within the solar chart. And in this case, for Scorpio Rising, it's the 10th house. Now, the reason we do this is because the sun rules Leo. So that area of life within the solar chart is giving us big significance. Just a side note, but within interpreting a natal chart where you have your ascendant, you can still derive, depending on, let's say it's a career reading, I might derive a lot more information out of the solar position in that regard than, let's say, the natal. All right. So, but getting back to this, with Diddy, we see him as a Scorpio here in the 10th house. Career matters are already off the bat a thing. So there's a natural thing we can understand here about Scorpio rising is that they're all seeking power, right? So we know that Scorpio is a sign of power and personal transformation and all of that. But you got to think about, okay, in life, how do you really obtain power? How is power really transferred within a life? And that is through 10th house matters, achievement, reaching the mountaintop, becoming a winner, right? To the victor goes the spoils. So then I like to look at the moon. I like to look at the relationship between the sun and the moon. And this whole significance, if we're looking at the sun as the purpose, the moon is who we've been, how we identify from within. And that is through our different experiences along our evolutionary journey. Remember, the moon is setting our pattern. So with Virgo and Scorpio, two signs that naturally sextile each other, there's a need to purify the consciousness. There's a need to come in to one's own power through doing the work, building oneself up in whatever area of life. And then once again, this falls here in the 10th house. So Scorpio Rising Virgo rules that 11th house. So within going about their 11th house ordeals, that person will need to be Virgo like. So one thing that I definitely get from Diddy's chart in many different facets is that nothing is given here. This man is a worker. Everything he has amassed, it's come through others, but he's played his part. And he's detail oriented in his approach, and calculated within the things that he's done, the moves that he's made. So and that's also reflected, let's say, through this Mercury opposed Saturn, which is exact and another defining position for the character, since Mercury rules the moon at the personality level. Okay, and then going back to Scorpio, another big thing here, or significant. It's a double correspondence, because Capricorn is the original 10th house, and that's Mars. Mars here at the 29th degree, and many people, they have their interpretations of 29th degree as a lot of things. And I acknowledge those things, but I look at it as big power. It's the culmination of a particular cycle. So this lifetime for Sean Combs is about reaching that mountaintop of Capricorn and enjoying the power that comes with that, right? So you want to look at that relationship, Mars ruling Scorpio, being deposited within Capricorn at the 29th degree. So there's a very willful person, patient too, as far as his story. And speaking of working, like, yeah, this is someone who started as an intern, paid their dues, had their vision, and ascended to the top. And he's been at that mountaintop for a while now. We also see part of Fortune and Juno falling into Capricorn as well. And I can definitely see this is representing the particular partnerships. This goes well with the Libra energy present in the chart as well. Juno is dealing with, remember, soulmates, those who assist you in that evolutionary process. So to have a Juno within Capricorn holds that within in this, and then add the part of Fortune there, holds that this potential is that those around you will be able to assist within the work of this. And if we're just even looking at the women he's been connected to, 𝐥𝐤𝐤 representing a Capricorn type of woman, Kim Porter, his other child's mother, both models and things of that nature, right? Cassie as well. Cassie having a modeling career and singing as well. Once again, natal chart being the potentialities, things we're blessed with, and also things we gotta conquer. When it comes on to looking at these positions, we know what we're dealing with. We're dealing with a Scorpio. We're dealing with a Scorpio whose Mars is in Capricorn. So I don't think this should be overlooked. For me as an astrologist, the fun part, it's seeing like where you where you really fall on the dignity of your essence, right? I'm a Gemini who has Mercury in Gemini, which gives a different flavor and overall process with Gemini things than, let's say, if it's in Cancer or Taurus, right? Different elements, all of that. So we have someone who is rooted in Scorpio emotion, that had emotion, passion, right? Focused will. That's Scorpio. And then Mars, wherever Mars is going to reflect how we're focusing that will. So to have it in Capricorn, where it's exalted, it's very much so a nice addition. So then when I look at the Juno and the part of Fortune, and then the Venus Jupiter conjunction here, this is someone who I could what it feels like, he has good people around him. I would think that his mother is good people, right? Moon here, trying that Juno and part of Fortune. So that's where it starts. Moon sextiling the Scorpio energy, sextile, trine Saturn. So when it comes to the women in his life, I see them as like a real blessing to him. And in his own way, he's a blessing to them as well. This is why I'm really trying to get at y'all, when we're really trying to understand deeper things of like how this could be. You have to kind of archetypally look at what's being presented. Scorpio is the desire for power, but then once that's obtained, choice. How do we exert this power? The interesting thing is, I'm gonna get there, but just within like what's coming back, it seems like there are people around him who are, let's say, the opposite of him. Okay, where they come off very Libra, like fair minded, um, not going to the levels that he may have, which, like I said, is just like, okay, what choices am I gonna make? This is what is around me. How do I water these flowers? How do I take care of them? Am I going to allow them to bloom how they naturally bloom, or am I going to try to dictate it? And kind of like how we see with others who have had their own transgressions. Control and power is something you got to really. It's a hard balance to strike, because a lot of times to get the power, you're in a lot of control. So it just kind of evolves from there. So the next thing that stands out to me here is this Venus Jupiter conjunction within Libra. So I want to first note to you that it's 12th from his sun, which could indicate the possibility of what is happening now, undoing because of secret activities regarding relationships, or maybe excess, okay, taking advantage of others, being unfair. Remember, Libra is justice, treating others kind of like, doing right by others, being fair. This also shows the potentiality of the type of people you'll attract. So he undoubtedly attracts Venusian type women, successful, well known women, known for their beauty, known for their aesthetics. Look at the aspects. The aspects really reveal here. So we kind of got like a wide orb here, about 5 degrees, 6 degrees from Venus and Jupiter to Mars. But yes, still, it is one of those aspects that make one difficult. And then it just comes back to what I'm saying, y'all. We're dealing with a Scorpio here, a prominent, not just any, a prominent Scorpio. And there's another layer of Scorpio about the type of Scorpio he is that I'll have to mention. But just finishing home this point here, this Venus does square that, and that will bring confrontation within partnerships. And then, like I said, the tendency to not do right or be somewhat unfair. Then when we bring in the Mars square Mercury, that's like trying to use your intellect to get over on others. It is a shady aspect. Won't hold you. And I've seen it play out in other ways. The trickster is kind of activated with Mars there. But then going back, we see Lilith here in Cancer, squaring that Venus and Jupiter. And to me, this really speaks to the ability to kind of have what you want, because the Venus and Jupiter is abundance. So it's an abundance of relationships one can have, an abundance of women. Uh, Lilith, also in Cancer corresponding, to that. So unconsciously, there may be a real tendency to not be able to actually commit. What's coming across to me is like difficulty being in a traditional partnership, okay, or balanced or fair. Like unconsciously, one tends to do things that upset that balance. Okay, that's what comes across to me. And then I want to highlight here, Mercury opposing Saturn this could be someone is like my way or the highway, particularly if this Saturn person is in a position of power, influence, or wealth. That really does speak to me like I'm the money here, right? And then that squares Mars as well. So yes, in looking at Diddy's chart, it's interesting because we have a charming Scorpio. And what I wanted to mention about the type of Scorpio he is he's the charismatic Scorpio, which is actually a overt way of letting you know how they are. You know, that's what I'm saying. With those kind of Scorpios in particular, they're letting you know, like, this is what I'm about. And if you're around them, they're going to exert their will in particular ways. And we've seen this. So it's very interesting. Yeah. Just wanted to give you guys, some insight into that. Feel free to comment. Let me know what you think. We'll build from there. Till next time. Peace.